A roda faz pra sereia do mar. A roda faz pra sereia do mar. A roda faz.
Hey, I'm Emilie.
I'm Kate.
I'm Lydia.
And I'm Maddie.
And this is Following Ley Line,
a podcast,
an invitation to explore the world through music.
Sereia. I guess I learned this song in Origins. Origins was a community band here in Austin that I found out about through a friend on like the second night after I got back from Brazil with Kate in 2012. And it just blew my mind. And I couldn't believe that, you know, there was this group of people that were studying Brazilian folklore music, and we just really grew together, and it was really beautiful. We would meet at Peace Park every weekend, and Fabio was kind of the leader of the group and just such an advocate for community space and community gathering and music, bringing everybody together. And he shared this repertoire of songs, which Sereia was included in, and showed me Renata Rosa, who became a very, very big inspiration.
And Renata Rosa wrote Sereia?
Renata Rosa performs it as a public domain song.
Does anyone know who wrote it originally?
I don't know.
We'll have to go back to Brazil to find out.
Maybe we'll have to go back to Brazil and uncover the mystery. But Origins was just this really, really special time for me, where I started really exploring my voice and the power of voice. And Renata Rosa definitely has that like guttural quality that's really high energy and rhythmic.
And so Sereia is a Coco, which is like a type of rhythm that comes from northeast Brazil, which sounds like this.
Yeah, and they say Coco is a unique blend of indigenous Brazilian music with European style and African, kind of like Pan-African, wherever, you know, the slaves of that area happen to be from. And it has this beautiful dance that involves this kind of like stomping of the feet, kind of like packing the land. And it's really fun and playful, and it's really high energy, speaking to the daily life of different communities around the northeast of Brazil. We just had a really magical experience going to a kind of like a community festa all together when we were towards the end of our tour in Olinda.
Oh, I forgot about
my God.
that.
Such a funny story. Well, one thing I want to bring up is like, sometimes when I think about tradition, like we'll be like, this is a traditional song from the northeast of Brazil. And the word traditional is like kind of loaded. Like you think of it as something that happened in the past. At least I do often when I hear that word. And it's so present in everyday life in Brazil. And I think about like being in the northeast of Brazil. We stayed with some friends. They were all around our age, and everyone was like playing and singing and dancing Coco all the time in the house. That was like the pastime. Someone would pick up a pandeiro and someone else would start singing, and then two people would be dancing, and it was just like a casual way to connect with the people that you love. And it was so sweet.
Totally. I think that's also something like very unique about Olinda, which plug into our visual album if you want to see more of that kind of vibrational frequency, is that oddly, you know, there's lots of folk songs about people moving from the countryside to São Paulo, to Rio de Janeiro, to these big kind of epicenters of finance and commerce. And there's actually kind of just this interesting draw of young people and artists that are going back to these communities where people are just continuing to celebrate these very old songs, and some of which like are not even known where they exactly came from. And so it is so special to see a certain group of people really like embodying that and bringing it back to life and keeping it alive. So that was one really special thing, I think, about our time spent in Brazil, was witnessing that. But I hear you, Lyd, on kind of going back to the word tradition, and that, yes, in so many different contexts, it, you know, it has this different weight. But I feel like most often when we're trying to kind of deliver a song that is not necessarily from our own specific bloodline or heritage, traditional, what it ignites for me in thinking about this Brazilian music and these songs is that it alludes to a simple time in which, you know, the lyrics are not very complex, and it's oftentimes just about what's surrounding them and then kind of the spiritual connection to those things. And that is something I really started to experience in Origins. Like I was like, oh my gosh, this music is just so magical. It's a consistent mantra and invitation to kind of remember the nature around us and how magical it is, and how you can see all the magic and the miracles if you open your eyes to it. And so that's kind of what it symbolized to me.
Let's talk about the lyrics. Let's translate them.
Maddie, you want to start with your first lyric?
Yeah, it begins with a roda faz, which means the circle is made.
Yeah. Comes together.
Comes together. Fazer. Hacer. To make. To make or do. A roda faz pra. La sereia do mar.
But we say pra, pra, pra. I remember when we first started singing it, I didn't speak any Portuguese, and I thought it was like bra, like bra, bra, bra. But it's like pra, which is like para a, shortened to bra, and then a bunch of times. Pra, pra, pra,
Bra,
pra,
bra,
pra, pra.
Pra sereia do mar.
The mermaid of the ocean.
For the mermaid of the sea. And then, so that's kind of like the choral background that's like holding down the Coco. And as the harmonies build, then I kind of take this lead. It's mostly singing the praises of the magic of the mermaid. Let's see, it says, A sereia canta. So it says the mermaid sings, Eu não vim cantar. So it usually says Ogun, but I changed it to Oshun because we're often always talking about the exchange between the ocean and the rivers.
Often always talking about.
Often always. Is that what I just said?
Yeah.
We're often talking about the continuous exchange between the oceans and the rivers. But yeah, it kind of says, I didn't see her singing. I didn't see the mermaid singing. But the song of the mermaid creates admiration. And then we kind of like break into the silence. And it's like a call to, it really feels to me like a call to play. And it says, Saia do mar, minha sereia, saia do mar, venha brincar na areia, saia do mar, sereia linda, saia do mar, venha brincar sozinha, saia do mar. It says, come out of the ocean, my mermaid, come and play in the sand. And then it says, saia do mar, sereia linda, saia do mar, venha brincar sozinha. So it says, come out of the ocean, beautiful mermaid, come and play by yourself. So it can mean so many different things, but I think one that I've often thought of is just that ability to really trust yourself and have fun in your own skin and celebrate your life and the magic of the natural world, especially the ocean.
Yeah. I love singing this song. It feels like such a celebratory moment when we play it at a show.
And I think it's a super special song because it's one of our only songs that's purely vocal and percussion, which has a really strong power. yeah, it's different than anything else that we play. And I think people can really feel our connection to it and our passion and our respect. And it takes me back to when we were invited on stage in Olinda at the kind of Festa de Coco. It was like a balada, no? Foi uma festa gigantesca de coco. It was like a huge...
It was like a block party.
A huge block party. That's pretty common, right? Like, it's like that's how things are done. Imagine, like, you've ever been to kind of like a South by Southwest or festivals or music that just happens and takes over the whole street, and everybody's just one big mess of energy and excitement and different drama happening here and there, and there's the soundtrack for the music, and like right in the middle where there would be a mosh pit is a Coco dance, which is everybody kind of, these two players get to jump in and dance around and spin, and when you want to get out of the dance, you like go and you bump bellies with somebody, and you're like, all right, tag, you're it, now you're in. And so we had this like whole night where we were, what were we drinking? It was that...
Oh, it was called Ashe, wasn't it?
It's like cachaça with this little. It was cachaça, right?
Catuaba. It was catuaba, I think, is what it's called.
Tiny bottles.
Obviously, no one remembers.
Ashe is, though Maddie is right, Ashe is a very specific drink that comes from Olinda, and it is shared like at the time of Carnaval typically, and it's a sweet drink.
Well, it's like it's kind of plain, but then there's this little packet of like gooey spice that has like cloves and like other crazy flavors, and you squeeze it into the plastic bottle and you shake it up, and then people just pass them around to strangers, and then you take like 3 sips, and then you're like, whoa.
It's very much the clove and ginger thing. It's like a medicinal cocktail.
I think that's like my favorite Ley Line memory of all time, because I just remember us being like, let's do it, let's get on stage, like we're gonna blow people's minds. And then we did. We just like got on stage, and then we were just like singing and clapping, and people are like flipping out. Yeah, it was just awesome.
It was awesome.
Wait, here's my memory of it. I had like way too much of that special drink that was getting passed around, and I was like sitting on the street on the edge of like where all the dancing was happening, with just like taking a minute. Like that was like it was like a low moment for me. And then suddenly I just hear like, Meninas de Texas. And I'm like, wait a second, I know those words. Girls from Texas, like what is going on? And my friend Joao comes over and he's like, that's you, like they're all on stage. And I like see in the distance like Maddie and Kate and Emily climbing onto the stage with like, there's like 13 people on stage and like big drums and this like awesome like woman playing like it's so crazy. And next thing I know, I'm being like pushed up onto stage, and we're about to like sing these songs. I'm like, I don't even know what the words are to these songs. I can't remember. And I just also remember looking down and being like, okay, don't fall.
Yeah. It was scary.
5 seconds ago, you were not able to stand up. And I stared at your lips, Emily, and I just like did all the same motions that you did with your lips and like tried to make sound. And I remember at one point I like turned back, and like this big woman's just like staring at me like hitting the alfaya, and I was like, whoa. Yeah. Okay, just keep looking at Emily. We made it through.
Yeah, wow. I honestly, now that you're talking about it, like, I don't even know what recollections. I just remember I got really excited. I was like, I'm going to meet this woman, and I'm going to tell her we're here from Texas and that we sing Coco too. And she was like, bora.
Let's go.
Vamos fazer. And it just happened. But I don't really remember. Yeah, I mean, it was a celebratory evening.
We sang 3 songs. We sang Pirilito, Sereia, and Arueda, which is pretty epic. And then another special moment I have is like just how these songs have been the soundtrack to our lives over these past couple years. And we learned them in Texas, and then finally being able to sing them in the Northeast on stage at a Coco party was kind of like the pinnacle of like, cool, we made it. We've been initiated, and we have earned the respect of these cultural leaders, and we have now been deemed like worthy of being on stage and singing with them, and it gave us kind of that like just extra dose of spirit to carry with us whenever now we play it on stage, and lead the circles at Old Sellers Music Fest and teach little kids how to play Coco when we're, on tour working with elementary schools. And it's just a pretty big gift to have that memory in the back of our minds when we're playing on stage.
Being in the Northeast, we got really into just like a study of Coco. And like I said, we were playing it at the house all the time. And then we got to perform at this like block party. And I remember like we went out to the suburbs, like an hour away, to go to this Coco party. And there's like this kind of sect of Coco that reminds me of freestyle rap, where people just like freestyle sing. And it originates from people singing the news. And that really reminds me of griots in Senegal, like musicians that would travel and tell stories. And that's how people get the news and know what's going on and know who's related to who and like what's happening in the world. So that was super cool to see the ties between West Africa and Brazil, and to meet all of these like incredibly smart singer poets that like create poetry on the spot to this rhythm. I thought that was so cool.
Me sinto agricultor, é diferente a maldade. Vou sair dessa cidade, voltar pro interior. Vou sair dessa cidade, voltar pro interior. Ninguém vê, me sinto bem.
Well, the other place that Coco took you, Emilie, was to Arco Verde, and that was after our tour ended and everyone kind of went their separate ways, and Emilie went on this solo trip to kind of go to one of the origin places of Coco. And she filmed some really beautiful footage that appears in the visual album.
Olha com sinceridade, vou sair dessa cidade, voltar pro interior. Vou sair dessa cidade, voltar pro interior.
The Ley Line Brazil tour was at a wrap, and I ended up going to Arco Verde for this festival. And I didn't really know what I was in for, but I knew it was going to be amazing because Coco Raízes de Arco Verde is this multi-generational band that lives in Arco Verde, and they host a festival every year, and they bring all kinds of music. It was extremely diverse, but really what captivated me most was kind of the night that had this wide variety of kind of Afro-Brazilian traditional performances. And it was like down to all of the amazing clothing and just like all of the orishas being represented through music and dance and costume. And the family band, of course, plays. And they have these amazing wooden shoes that are made by kind of the elders of the group, typically the grandfathers. And they carve these just pieces of pine and nail on these leather strips. And that's what their daughters and nieces and nephews and grandchildren wear on stage to create rhythm. It's like they're wearing flip-flops and they're tapping these shoes really, really fast, and they're getting all of the kind of like 16th notes out of, this really simple rhythm. It's really incredible. And they were just like some of the most generous, open people. And one thing led to the next. And I was introduced to a guy who was with a team of 15 to 20 people who were invested in filming a cultural documentary of this family and the origins of their style of Coco. And we visited the home of the great-grandfathers who began singing Coco together and had since like passed it down to their children. And I got to spend a few afternoons with Mestre Assis while he carved his shoes and sang songs. And I got to like sing songs that he knew, and we were singing them together because I'd learned them kind of just like unknowingly. he had this poise that was so natural and easy. He wasn't like blown away by me. I think he was just like, of course, you're here and we're singing these songs together.
Ela não ferrou. O som enrola no cabelo com aquele zuraveiro fazendo chua-chua. Subir no olho da aroeira para tirar.
Yeah, one of the sweetest moments, he sang this song. It's called Naquela Casa. Naquela casa caiada foi onde nós dois morou. And it's about a dream of his. Mas era cheia de amor. So I kind of started to ask him like where these lyrics come from for him. And, you know, it was very simple for him. He was like, doesn't really take a lot of thought for me. The melody comes and then the words are there because they're around me. They're like manifested as spirits, and that's how the songs come.
As you were talking about that, it made me think of like how there's like these country songs that are just like super simple. Like a lot of them have the same melodies pretty much. It makes me think of like there's a song, it's called I Drive Your Truck, that's like, I remember crying to that song because it's like the same kind of thing. It's just like a really simple concept that's like kind of just like repeated over and over again, but it's like something that's so relatable. Like we all know what that's like to be like in that house or like driving your dad's truck and then thinking about like, what's this going to mean to me like 10 years from now? And yeah, that's the beauty of folk music, the relatability.
Yeah, the relatability and kind of like the poetry and the simple things in life, you know, like when we look at Renaissance paintings of the like a loaf of bread and a lady standing by it and the light coming in, and it's like that's what was worthy of being celebrated, you know, to come down from painting only elites and talking about the, you know, kind of the complexities and the absurdities of life, you know, when we get caught up in, you know, material wealth and recognizing that there is just so much beauty in appreciating the simple everyday moments. And the more that we can do that, I feel like the more we're connected to ourselves and to, like Emilie said at the beginning, the magic around us.
And that's what Sereia is all about. I think whenever we sing it, I don't think about the mermaid and necessarily building the circle, but it's more so the feeling of unity and this idea of singing to the ocean and celebrating the mysticism and the unknown.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Following Ley Line.
We have just a couple podcast episodes left. In the next episode, we're going to talk about Tout ce que je vois.
And you are invited to our virtual premiere of our visual album, where you get to see us and get to see this epic journey that we went on. It's kind of part travel documentary, part music video, part art film, and we can't wait to celebrate with you. So join us May 14th on Bandcamp, and get your tickets today, and we'll see you there.
Sereia linda, saia do mar, minha sereia, saia do mar, venha brincar na areia, saia do mar, sereia linda, saia do mar, venha brincar sozinha.